Hello there, this is Sohail Hasni, your host at Entrepreneurs. Cheap solar power, batteries, and electric vehicles are changing the transport and energy sector as we know. I bring in guests to this podcast who will help you with their ideas to navigate this energy transition. Thank you for joining. Hi, Janine. Good to see you finally. Maybe you introduce yourself first. I like the energy you bring to the conversation.
Good to see you. I remembered the book that you recommended me. So I'm looking forward to a book recommendation today. Hello, everyone. I'm Janine, CEO of Solve Education. What Solve Education does is that we build learning platforms that deliver scalable, measurable, engaging education to marginalized communities. To date, we have delivered over 30 million lessons globally. I'm so excited to be here to speak to you.
30 million lessons. That's a lot.
Yes, we obviously can't do this on our own. We do this through different self-organizing learning communities, like through our student ambassadors or partnering with different grassroots communities, basically ground out efforts, as well as cross-sector partnerships with private sector or with governments. So yeah, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, sounds like it. So you are not only targeting a vulnerable population, prepare them, and also raising financing for it and making it happen.
That's right. Everybody has to work together in the space of education, and it's so broad. Each stakeholder bring in something unique to the table, and together, then we are able to solve such a big problem. Over 600 million children and youth globally today will not reach functional literacy or numeracy rate. We feel very passionate about this problem. We want to bring people together to solve it.
Yeah, if you are able to bring people together, you can solve any problem. How did you get into this space? Sounds like a very exciting place to be in, no?
It is exciting. So I feel like I stumbled into this place. My background is in computer engineering. I grew up in Singapore and got trained as a computer engineer. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of spare time and to play because I have a tiger mom who makes sure that all of my playtime is or spare time is filled up with extracurricular activities like ballet lessons, piano lessons, tuition, and so on and so forth. And it wasn't when I was much older that I could really appreciate what my mom was trying to do. She grew up not having a lot of resources. In fact, her father passed away at a young age, and my illiterate grandmother had to bring up a family of 8 children. The girls are not deemed as worthy as boys, right? So the girls had to drop out of school to work to fund the education of the boys, my mom included. My mom wanted me and my sister to have all the opportunities that she could never have access to. For that and for many other things, I'm so grateful. Education really changed my life. I really wanted to see what education could do for the many others who today still don't have access to the opportunity. I stumbled into this because I was at that point no longer working in the tech sector, but in the hospitality sector in Indonesia. And I was working based out of a mall that is basically the most expensive mall in Indonesia. Right across that was this road where you have kids selling sweets and cigarettes on the street, right? So while working in that environment and facing that on a daily basis really pushed me to start Solve Education.
I actually saw a photo yesterday on a Mumbai city train
Oh,
this side of the big
yes.
properties and the squatters on that side.
Yeah.
But you think the only divide there is the education, or at least education is one of the major ones, right? So that equalizes people at that stage.
It's not always so simple, right? When we talk about social issues, but I do think that a big equalizer is education, because education is catalytic, right? You can't teach people gender equality, right? Gender equality without basic literacy, or how do we teach climate change without understanding science? So I think that the foundational skills. I'm not talking about very advanced PhD level education, right? But the foundational skills of being able to read, comprehend, think, and analyze is something that would change people's lives.
Yeah, the people like you and I and most of my guests, we all have double masters of our PhDs, but that's not the norm in any society. Doesn't matter if you go to the richest country or the poorest country, still the education distribution is quite different. That's what I figured out when I talk to people here and there. So you suddenly realize that not everybody has that education, but I'm quite optimistic though, because of internet, a lot of levelization happened. I have an encyclopedia at home or I have access to this library, but that gone because of Google. Now because of AI, a lot of those will change. People, if they have the right attitude, they'll be able to figure out or find out, right? Like even an average person walks into the doctor, comes up with question, doctor saying, oh, okay, let me think about it.
That's right. I think that there are a lot of questions about will AI actually broaden the divide or bring people together? And I remember that I was asked frequently a few years ago, does digitalization widen the gap or bridge the gap? So the response to both the questions, whether it's digital divide or AI divide, is how do we design the AI or how do we design digital tools, right? Are we designing with the intention to bridge or are we designing with the intention to divide? If I take the digital divide, for example, during COVID, there are so many ed tech products coming out, right? However, many of them are still designed for the not for the bottom billion learners. And what I mean is that not everybody has an iPhone or a phone that has a very good memory. Not everybody has access to stable internet connectivity. And not everybody have the digital literacy level, right? So many edtech products are designed for higher end users, regular users, but nobody really designed it for the bottom of the pyramid. If we were to continue like that, we will broaden the divide. But if we actually put in the effort, and as we do in self-education, to design for low-end phones, low data consumption, or learners with low digital literacy, then we will be able to bridge the divide. So I think AI is the same. I'm actively participating in, I'm an optimistic person, and I think you are too. There are LLMs that are now optimized to even run on low-end devices, run offline. I think those are very exciting trends.
Yeah, I personally think the hardware constraints will go away. Early days of programming, people used to say, can I fit all that into that many kilobyte, then megabyte, and
Yes.
people don't care, right? Because storage and memory and computer power becomes so cheap, but it's got stuck into the software, right? I think it's the fundamental currency that might divide. And I want your answer on this later on. You might have lot of degrees, but if you're not open to the possibilities, you're not going to do much. That will be the fundamental currency. How do you bring the emotional energy that Janice has into someone? He or she gets super excited.
I think this attitude discussion does come out frequently in our work because we have seen many well-meaning people going to developing countries. And obviously to solve education, to address education issue, the first thought that people have in their minds is to build a school. And that's why there are so many schools being built, but actually not being used. And people are surprised, how come I build a school but nobody comes? And then people get disheartened. Oh, those people, they can't be helped. They're just not motivated. They're lazy. But what we have learned after so many years working on our ground is that there are actually many layers below this big word laziness. I think one fundamental belief or limiting belief, if you will, that we see across different countries is this lack of self-confidence or low self-esteem amongst the marginalized communities. If you don't even believe that you can learn, that you deserve a better life or there are other opportunities out there, why would you put in the effort to learn? I think that is very understandable. I remember one of our projects in our early years where we were teaching literacy in marginalized community in Indonesia, where the project is to engage moms in low income families. And when we were rolling out, our adoption rate was really low, like
Mhm.
10%. And we can say, hey, those other people are lazy, but we still continue to work hard in engaging them. The belief really was that I'm just a mom, I can't learn. And also the belief that learning only happens in the classroom when a human is teaching you. Then what happened in 3 months' time was really exciting. At the end of 3 months, I think we were over 100% subscribed. I don't know the extra people came from. And we start to have pictures being sent to us where the moms who started to learn and realize, hey, I'm actually learning things. And they hold little classrooms in their homes, having like the neighborhood kids, like 5, 6
Mhm.
kids, teaching them English with their little phones. It still gives me goosebumps to this day because, like you rightfully say, the mindset shift is really what we need to address because once somebody is motivated, everything changes, right? So for self education, while we do create education technology products, our main aim is to solve for motivation.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
I remember years ago, 93, when I finished my MBA, I remember sitting on a train. I was coming back home and think, I spent all this money and a year full time. What did I learn from the MBA? I was just talking to myself.
Are you asking for a refund?
But then, what I was concluded, and I still personally believe till today, all I learned from that any situation, if you cannot solve a problem, all you have to do is ask. That has been a tremendously powerful thing for me. Complicated situation, you go and ask very fundamental questions. Sorry, I don't understand. This should connect here. It does not. And however dumb it is, and then someone says, "Oh, sorry, we have made a mistake," or whatever, right? So I thought that was the most basic attitude I came out with the business school 30 plus years ago, that all I have to do is ask.
You never know. Maybe everybody else don't know. Sometimes we forget what's the fundamental. For self-education, what we do is that we use the GAIN method, GAIN. So gamification, we use an AI coach, AI incentives, and network. So gamification is important, right? Because you make people feel like they are actually like giving them that different dopamine hits as they learn something and give them a very strong sense of progress and achievement. But then of that, we supplement it with an AI coach. The AI coach will be there to cheer you on, answer questions, encouragement as you go along. We added that because we realized that many of our learners in their communities do not have somebody who believe in them. And I think parents want to do the best for their child. And many of parents in marginalized community will tell the kid, don't dream too high because they don't want their kids to be graded later on. When I was asking many different people who actually succeeded despite coming from a difficult background, it's because there's somebody who believed in them. So we built in the AI coach. The incentives part is important as learners learn through us. And this part of incentives is what we built in for people to redeem their points for workshop sessions, CV writing workshops, and other things like that. So that keeps them motivated. And last but not least, the network. Many of us are turning up in different platforms because our friends are there. The network is there. And this is actually a very big part of pedagogy, right? So if I'm in an environment where I feel other people are learning, I'm also more motivated to learn. So those are the things that we do to motivate and engage our learners.
Now, let me try to understand. I did something, I've just popped into my mind. It will take me a minute to tell you the story. I was in Mongolia 2002 or sometime. So I go to the gym and this girl follows me. One day I got annoyed. On the third day, I said, "Why?" She said, "Sir, my job is to manage the key." So she opens the gym. I go and she just watches. And she says, "Oh, annoying." So finally I said, "Why are you doing this? How old are you?"
Mhm.
She said, 17. Then I suddenly clicked. I said, "Leon, I give you a challenge. Why didn't you learn 100 English word every day?" She said, "Yeah, what will happen?" He said, "It's a game. Let's see if you can learn." She said, "I can learn 200.
Gamification.
Yeah. So I said, "Okay, I'll check you tomorrow." So next day she said, "Yes, I did." And I was checking. Then She said, okay, what happens if I learn 1,000? So I said, you know what? I will hire you as an interpreter if you can learn this much. Okay, you have a dictionary, I'll buy you a dictionary. Yes. Anyway, so I was there for a week. So I think by the time I came back, she already done 400 or 500. And she was telling me now I can see all these words in the newspapers, right? So I gave her an email address. Once you finish 2,000, email me. I was traveling. I saw an email coming in. I went back there 9 months later. I said, what happened to this girl? Oh, she's in London. I said, why? How? They said it was snowing one day. She was carrying a big dictionary. Some guest told her something and she was trying to learn English everywhere. There was a conference going on and a lady from British Council was looking for an interpreter. And she, out of all, was saying, I can help you. Everybody was laughing. Apparently, that lady found her very good. She organized a scholarship. She went to UK, that young girl, and her family is going next month. And I said, wow. I think that's my
Wow.
biggest achievement today.
Wow.
Lost contact. But then maybe I followed
Wow.
your formula in a way.
Wow. Okay. Absolutely. Because you made it a game and then you are like a coach, right? You say, okay, yeah, 100 more. So that's part of what you do. And the incentive was to get a job with you. So that's the
No,
very
not only incentive, I think I showed her a purpose in a way. If I do, this will happen, right?
yes. Yes, and that's the coaching part. So you absolutely you what we have. And then the social network, which is what she found on her own, practicing with others and so on.
Just spent total 2-3 minutes. And my objective was to get rid of her because she's watching me like this.
You just imagine that's so powerful to change the life of one person. So how do we scale many Sohels everywhere, right? That's what we are trying to do with the AI code.
I
That's
didn't
so
have your
powerful.
formula. I just did it intuitively.
That's so powerful. I'll be curious where she is today.
I think I posted once again. I want to connect back to that Mongolian girl.
Yes, let's look for her.
I have a question for you. The world has changed. The fundamental mindsets have changed. We could not generate electricity. Now we can. Could not store. Even the cars are running on batteries. Batteries are supposed to just light up lights, right? This needs a lot of education, mindsets, and others. What should the corporates do? I don't think the governments are doing a good job. They're just asking, okay, you have a problem with the range, this is how we solve. But they're not taking a macro approach saying it's a mind shift issue. How do we shake people thinking?
Do you think that this responsibility lies in the corporates of the government?
Also, I think education sector is too much behind because engineering education, I think, will lag maybe 10 years. They will even teach. Engineers will teach how to build the best cars. I often wonder, there are a lot of people who does podcasts, a lot of influencers talking about this, but at a larger scale, I don't think that penny has dropped yet. What are your thoughts?
I think, like you, I feel that we are going through a very drastic change, and humans in our history change, but we have different revolutions already. Though I think that this revolution is a lot faster than anyone that we have experienced before. I was just sharing in another conference that the French metro system is one of the oldest in the world, more than 100 years old. And they just got rid of that paper ticket this year. In Singapore, we went direct to the magnetic ticket. Singapore only widely adopted the digital payment system Pay Now during COVID because we were forced to not use cash. Or Bangladesh or Philippines have that GCash and Bcash much earlier, right? The adoption is much earlier than us.
Bcash also flourished during COVID. Before that, I remember, early adopters. I had Gcash in the Philippines, and my friends would say, "Why you need Gcash?" And suddenly COVID happened. But Bangladesh did much
Yeah,
earlier. Definitely.
Bcash is amazing. What I'm trying to say is that if you are very much ahead of everybody today, doesn't mean that you're going to be ahead of everybody 5-10 years time. If you are lagging behind today, you don't have to go through all the steps, right? You can jump, you can leapfrog today, right? So that makes things really interesting and fun. If you're behind, you don't need to feel so bad, right? But if you're ahead, you can't let down your guard. So I think with that thought, the governments really need to be more agile, right, in how they think, how they plan out policies, right? And even things that is long term, there should be a lot of leeway to adjust and be flexible depending on how the world continue to change. And I think corporates, I don't think we need to necessarily worry about them because the ones who don't innovate will just not. And the ones that are relevant will continue to grow, flourish. And I'm not sure if we really need to worry about them.
Like in Afghanistan, never saw black and white TV. They went straight into colors, right?
That's right.
And US, I think, was the last adopter of mobile phones. But Philippines, everybody was texting everyone else as early as 2002.
Really. And I think that really gives us a lot of optimism in Asia, right? Because we have so much energy here. I think the best is yet to be for us.
Yes, that sounds interesting. Because of AI, if people look for an answer for anything, right? I mean, there's a bit of dangers as well, but you will be able to follow through if you spend on any topic, whatever, right? It's almost sitting next to the most knowledgeable coach, and your ability to, coming back to my MBA lesson, you can answer anything without feeling saying, oh, am I dumb or something, right? You can actually lay out a plan and you can build the whole structure. You might just say, hey, I want to build a house. Where do I start? Okay, tell me about foundation. Tell me about material. Technically, you can spend, I don't know, 100 hours and you can be more knowledgeable than any construction guy around, at least knowing the choices.
Yeah.
Before, those options were not available because you had to first ask, what do I want to read? You go to libraries, ooh, so many books. Where do I start?
It's so overwhelming, right? And I think that's why, for me, how we think about education needs to change drastically. And maybe that was your question. In a world where 5 to 10 years' time, we don't know what jobs will be available or what skills will be relevant, right? What I think is that the foundational skills of being able to read and not only just read, comprehend, and then be able to think and analyze. So basically, literacy and numeracy would lay the strong foundations for you to learn or pick up anything that you want in the future. I've seen people struggle with learning new things because that foundational skills are not built. On top of that, we layer on how to learn, right? So I think the skills of learning is actually going to be very important for us moving forward. I think people are really bashing rote memorization, right, which still exists in school today, but we are all aware that needs to go away. Instead of that, how to train people to learn, think, and analyze becomes a lot more important.
Absolutely. I think the foundational knowledge is very important. There you need to understand. With a lot of math, 4% of 17% is 6.8 or whatever, right? That number to be able to process is important. So knowing the numbers table, maybe memorizing helps sometime, right? Because I've seen people in the cash register 102 minus
Yeah.
4 and doing, oh, okay. Simple.
I think
Yeah,
what
but
your point is there's a place for rote memorization, right?
of course, coming home is a memory you've done so many times, right? So I
Yes.
think the basic core, yes, you need to know. You should be able to walk into a place. Lithium, oh, this is the
And
lightest material from the periodic tables. You
exactly.
cannot just say, okay, I'll go and look it up. That's why
Exactly.
sodium batteries will never be as light as lithium battery because sodium is way down the track. You cannot make a gold battery because gold is very heavy. That's a very basic. But then one thing though, because a lot of our education, I have a couple of engineering degrees and a lot of things I learned never used. So I think maybe the fundamental base needs to be very strong. And then
And
people learn on a need basis.
I agree. I think so. I feel like we could spend more time forming a very strong foundation so that people can explore what they want to explore in a more effective way. Today, we've seen youth at 17, 18 years old still not having that strong foundational math thinking of a grade 2 or grade 3 level. And we are trying to cramp in more and more information. I think that might not be as effective as just going back to the basics.
Yeah, because if you go to a doctor, he or she should not open up a book saying, let me check which side your heart is. That rote memory needs to be there through practice and whatnot. But then, of course, the latest what's happening, he or she can look up, right? I think whether you are an accountant or any principal thing, you need to understand the basic. And then you want to do all of this for marginalized communities who have no motivation, no AI, no incentive, no network.
No, not that they have no motivation. It's just like the story I was sharing with before. We just need to change, right? We need to change their mindset. Therefore, the framework of gamification using an AI coach plus incentives and also creating a network around them all becomes very important for the success of the learner journey. Without this, like other ed tech products, it's very easy for people to fall off and drop off or give up.
You are also an entrepreneur, a speaker. You have a long list of achievements and attributes and skills, right? So, what do you tell a wannabe entrepreneur? What should they do now in this highly confused world? So many things are happening. How can they have an exciting life? Jenny's have very exciting, high energy, trying to change the world, right?
You're an entrepreneur too.
I'm trying.
I want to say that entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It's not a must to be an entrepreneur. You have to see a problem that you really want to solve and solve it should you decide to be an entrepreneur because their journey is really hard. I'm sure you know this too.
I started very late. I'm a 60 plus entrepreneur. So it's
I
a very
love it.
different risk appetite.
Definitely find the problem that you want to solve. But then second thing is to really make sure that you have the support system around you as well, because entrepreneurship can be a very lonely journey. And I think that if you value work-life balance and other stability or predictable life, you should not choose entrepreneurship. I think that entrepreneurship is really a calling and there's just so much over glamorization of entrepreneurship that I don't want people to come in thinking, oh, everything's going to be rosy. I'm going to be my own boss so I can decide whenever I work. But the reality would shock you. You might be working harder than you have ever done and have a lot more responsibilities than you have ever had.
I should have talked to you before I designed.
How is your journey?
For me, of course, as I said, kids grown up of school, I don't have to worry about the things that I worried 30 years back as a young professional. Those sort of immediate worries are gone. The risk appetite may be a little different as well. And then you have the experience. But I think one resources that are very important in entrepreneurship, which I have, you have, is access to network and being very resourceful. You can look up people, resources, at least you know where it is, right? So that is something very important asset that people needs to build up. Doesn't matter which
Yeah.
profession they go for.
Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about learning, right? And I talk about the ability to learn being so important. Learning, the passion for learning is absolutely essential for entrepreneurship because you don't know what other problems is going to come your way. And many times you need to learn as you go and learn as fast as you can. Like us learning how to navigate your fancy video equipment.
No, I think learning is a must right now. And everyone is doing that. You have a new phone, a new car, a new anything. Things are changing, right? You have to learn. It depends how much, but you have to learn. Even road sign is changing, right? So we are all learning, but the issue is leapfrogging. That's where the challenge is.
Yeah.
If I'm moving, it's almost like overtaking people on highways. I think that
Yeah.
we have to do purposefully. And
Yeah.
With AI, maybe even
Definitely.
better. We cannot keep on blaming others. I think that is one important thing. Of course, we all have challenges. Life is a challenge. I tell people if you don't have challenges, we're all dead. But the issue is willingness to take risk because it's like a freeway. You can continuously drive and monotonous, or you decide to overtake within speed limits or otherwise. But I think that choice we have and that attitude we need to have.
People frequently have this misconception that they just want to have a life without too much challenges and so on. But the most addictive games, and I'm just going to say a classic one like Candy Crush, right? So every new stage or new level actually is designed to make it challenging enough so that you don't get bored, but not too challenging that you give up. Humans naturally seek challenges and seek to grow, right? It's just natural to us. That's why it also works very well in education and life. I find that resilience is something we need to think harder about, especially when it comes to our young generation. I've read a lot of different articles or research on the new generation being not as resilient as the Gen Zs are not as resilient as the millennials and so on. So I think that is something that the education system, the government needs to think about as well.
Yep, I think there are a lot of challenges and you need leaders. Lack of leadership is a big challenge globally, every field, right?
Yes, that's true.
Leadership is very important, right?
That's true as well. Yeah. And not everybody have access to that.
Yeah, I think that's also true. Views on climate change and others. What's your view with the new tech, new education thing will happen? Because technology that we need are all here. It just needs people to adopt, and people need to clear their head with all the misinformation, disinformation that has been put out by our fossil fuel friends.
Very diplomatic, as you call them, friend. We are embarking on climate change education fairly soon. We have already rolled out a module on eco power, how to change waste into things that you could sell to others or marginalized communities. I think that has been really well received. So that's why we are going more into the climate change education side. A lot of people living in coastal areas are marginalized and they actually will be the ones suffering most from climate change. And if we don't educate them about climate change, they don't know, right? They don't know what they're doing actually contributes to their own sustainability, right? So I think education is one part. But a second bigger part, I think, is about political will. What do you think?
Bottom up, because I don't think top down governments and leaders telling what to do has not worked, will not work. Too many vested interests. I think it's the bottom up. People have to take individual actions.
Interesting. So pessimistic.
Think about what will happen. It's a market power. You will say, I'm not going to buy this. If you don't, then the boardrooms will notice why people are not buying.
Practically speaking, I would say because the big percentage of the population who live in coastal areas still have struggles in their daily lives, right?
Yeah, they can't do much. They are sort of at the receiving end, but what they can do, they can maybe vote the right people. Once we start decarbonizing our political system, I think the right decision will be made.
You think that is more easily attained than top down? Okay, I hear you. So for me, I think that it's really important to educate them so that they understand what's going on and be able to make more informed decisions. Number one. Number two, I really do think that because people are worried about their daily survival and so on, actually, I'm optimistic that technology would make climate friendly products that is at the same cost as the other alternatives. This is going to be a very important part of the puzzle because the war against climate change is going to be on economics, not on climate change itself.
We can continue discussion on this maybe another day. I think I want to have another conversation with you on a very specific topic, but thank you. You've given a lot of thoughts to my sort of listeners as well, because it's a different topic, but it is applies to everyone. It's not about tech.
I would say that behavioral change is hard, right? Everybody knows that working out every day is a good thing to do, but I skipped my workout this morning. Intellectually, I know eating snacks, cookies is not good, but here I am having like cookies, right? The behavioral change is really hard. However, I think the field of behavioral science and many governments use this, as you already know, right? To help nudge people to the more desired action. And I think I'm excited to see more how that field can be applied to nudging more positive changes in the society. And we definitely use this and we partner with different behavioral scientists institute or ADB actually to change people's behavior so that they can reach their potential or lead a better life. I think maybe that field can be done for climate change.
Thank you. How can people reach you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, on LinkedIn, I think I'm the most active on LinkedIn. Boring people like us, active on LinkedIn.
Okay, Janine, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Energypreneurs. To continue listening to this conversation, please visit us at Energypreneurs. Thank you. See you next time.